so I'll start with meeting Michael.
Okay.
And in New Yorkshire, right?
Yeah, please.
And how I heard What You Need.
Okay.
And I don't know why, but for some reason, I think all the music at that time was very sort of either Culture Club or rap or Run DMC. And so they did the Aerosmith track, and then I heard this rocking song, What You Need, and it was kind of dancey, but it also sounded like a proper rock and roll band.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to say a bit later to my friend Andy, "Have you heard that song by this group?" I said, "I don't even know how you say their name. It's called What You Need." And she said, "Oh my God," she goes, "that's Michael, he's one of my best friends." And I said, "Oh great." And she goes, "You know what, they're playing at Madison Square Garden in a week. Do you want to go?" So I said, "Yeah, I'd love to go." But as I said in my note, I thought when I found they're Australian, I thought, I don't know, we had a sort of weird relationship with the Aussies, didn't we? Us English. It's being Poms and everything. And
they blame us for that, and we blame them.
And I think of them being like Dame Edna. Dame Edna, or what's the other character he does? The culture of the Tasha.
There's Patterson.
What's his name?
So there's
Patterson. Yeah, there's Patterson. so I imagine most of them to be like that, and I really couldn't tell from that video with John from Michael. They all had that sort of Aussie hairstyle, and I felt, which I thought was interesting, the lead singer, you couldn't really tell, I didn't following him as much as some people would, that's my first record I got into them on. You couldn't really tell there was a singer and who was in the back, because John was doing that sort of thing with the drumstick.
Yeah. Not
behind the drums. And so when I went to the show, when I saw Tim, I thought Tim was Michael. Eventually I got Michael, and he did that really, g'day, he used to do that to really emphasise Aussie accent. But I gradually found during that evening that he was actually quite completely different from the stereotype Aussie. The other guys in the band were a little bit more like that. Tim really sharp fishing, and those are archetypal Aussie boys. Michael, and I don't know whether Michael was just at the beginning of his change, of becoming sort of separate from them. Michael was much more, let's say, worldly.
Yeah, he travelled a lot from his youth, hadn't he? So
that's what?
He travelled a lot in his youth, hadn't he? Flitting between Hong Kong and the US.
He lived in Hong Kong, and he was very, not bookish, but smart. He was very smart, and he could have a conversation with anything, about anything. So, which is great for me and him, because we just pretty much talked all night, and that wasn't even to do with the chemicals that we were taking. But we had a really great time, and I just remember stumbling out of this club at 9 o'clock in the morning, having stayed up all night dancing, meeting and dancing and stuff, and coming out of there thinking to myself, that person I just met was one of the most interesting and charismatic people I've ever met. He didn't seem like a rock star, but he had that charisma. He didn't seem like an arty. He just seemed all these different mixes of people, and that made me more interested. So I became a little bit more determined on the idea of actually doing something for them. And when I said to Ali that, she said, "Oh, that's okay, because I already told Michael about you, and he'd be interested in talking to you about the new album they're doing." And as I was trying to say in that thing, everything kind of went. Within 1 week, I'd met Michael. Within 2 weeks, I was in LA meeting them. Within less than 2 months, I was in Australia doing it. It all went so quickly. And he said, "Can you meet the rest of the band in LA? We're playing the Greek in a week." And just by coincidence, I was already going to LA because I was meeting Richard Butler from Psychedelic Furs about their album cover. And I remember running from meeting with Richard, which went longer, to racing to try and get to the Greek, because they wanted me to meet them before the show started, and being late, and the band had started. And that's why I always remember running up the hill, getting there, because I parked the car miles away, running up the hill and hearing Don't Change. First time I'd heard it. So what a brilliant song it was. It carried that moment, and I've never been to the Greek since without thinking about that song. Anyway, so I went backstage. We didn't really do much talking about work because everyone was drunk, and then Michael said, I'll call you when I get to Sydney." And then he said to me, a week or so later, "Why don't you come down to Sydney?" He said, "We'll pay your flight. If you come down to Sydney, you can stay with me." So I thought, that's yeah, great. I just went, "You know what, Jim? I was with this girl. I've been going out with a girl called Ellen for 5 years, and New York was just kind of beginning to sort of fall apart at the seams. There was AIDS had just really sort of taken off, and there was a lot of heroin overdoses, and then there was this murder, the gay murders with this guy called Andrew Crispo, who murdered. It was just, everything just seemed horrible, and I felt like I needed to get away. My relationship was really sort of burning out, but I didn't plan to end it. I just kind of got on a plane, went to Sydney, ended up staying there for 6 months. But the interesting piece in here, which I didn't really get into, was Michael hadn't told anyone I was coming. I thought this was a big, I thought, I'm going down, everyone's expecting me. Nobody knew who I was when I got there. Michael hadn't told anyone. And so, I called Chris Murphy, and Chris Murphy said, who the fuck are you, So I felt a little bit weird, so I thought I'd give it a few days, and I went to Rhinoceros Studios that first night I got there, and then we went back to Michael's. But I felt, this is before I heard any music, I just felt there was such an incredible, and I don't think I ever felt it in London, not even in punk, such a togetherness and community, not just about the band, but the whole scene in Sydney. It was really warm and welcoming, and everybody was helping each other out. Whereas in London, it was all like, oh, I'm not going to tell, don't tell them, or keep that a secret. We're better than they are. So it was really weird coming from that lack of trust to this very trusting group of people. And part of it was going out and partying, and the other good thing was that I hate going to recording studios. I usually go in there, I used to go in there towards the end of when the band was finishing mixing. But producers hated outsiders going to the studio because they kind of caused the disruption. Yeah. And Chris Thomas was the complete opposite. In fact, at the band, and they always asked everyone's opinion and what did you think, and it was, so it felt like everyone was really involved in the decision making, albeit smaller ones on the record. But previous to this, just to jump back, I always remember when I finally met Michael, I thought, my God, he's got that really weird, good-looking rock star thing with his hair, a great taste in clothes, and I thought this he's a star. He looked brilliant, and when he was on stage, he was great. Richard Butler, who was a really good friend of mine, and his stage performances are sometimes questionable. More people recognise Richard Butler than they did Michael. And yet Michael sold a lot more records. I thought, that's weird. Why didn't people recognise him? And I thought, well, that's the first thing I'm going to do. I'm going to make sure that they recognise him because I thought he looked great. So that was in the back of my head. Michael somehow had to be on the cover. I didn't mind their album covers up to them, but they were very Australian. So I wanted to make sure it wasn't Australian, it was international. And that's all I knew. But it was, somehow I was going to put something together based on those things. So of course when I get to Australia, the band were like, oh, what are you doing? It was just that really weird thing, like, Michael hadn't said anything, so I felt a bit strange, because, his ex-girlfriend, his girlfriend who just broke up with Michelle, was working with a photographer's agent called Melanie Dames. And I've been on the phone setting up this photo session, so I wasn't even wondering whether they even knew about the photo session. So I think Michael eventually kind of got it together to say, hey, Nick's down there to do the album cover. And they were like, great, because that's exactly what they were like. They didn't go, like they would in London, well, what's he doing down here? We didn't approve of that. They were immediately, great, oh, that's brilliant, Nick's doing the album cover.
And had they had any concepts up to that point for the cover?
What I did is I kind of took some cuttings out of Italian Vogue, because Stephen Meisel was just taken off then, and it was all very graphic looking, white sights. So that's where the sort of basis came from, Bachelor. So I wanted it to be something like that, but still rocky, and that was still a rock and roll feeling. And Stephen Meisel had that kind of rock and roll fashion feeling. So I didn't. It was just all in my head, and I think I might have done a really basic. There's no computers. Little cut and paste. Yeah. And said to Michael, this is the kind of thing I'm going to do, and he goes, great, no problem. So I thought that was it. It was all approved, and so when I get to Australia, the first couple of days I'm hanging out, going, this is kind of good, but why am I meeting the band? And I went to the studio. And the only time I was in the studio, they weren't in there. It was just Chris Murphy and Michael. And then one day they all kind of showed up in there. That's when Michael sort of broached the subject and said, because they were looking in that mysterious way, I'm next to the album cover. So, then I thought I had approval, but little did I know that he hadn't told Chris Murphy I was here. So I was going along thinking everything was sort of chirpy and great, but really in effect it wasn't. It was just, Michael's the kind of person that you'd say, don't forget to do that, and you know, I forget to do it, and you'd wake up in the morning and you'd say, did you forget? Oh yeah, no, I'll do it right now. So he would do it, but you'd have to be standing right behind him. So I know it was just formulating my friendship with him, so I wasn't really sure, how I should proceed or whether I should go back to New York. But we got a photo session together through Michelle, and we shot these pictures, and the band were great. We had a good time with them, and I've been in the studio, and I was starting to get a real vibe that what I was thinking was right. And then what did I do? So I got the pictures back, but again, it wasn't anything like Photoshop. It was literally print out pictures, cut around them with a scalpel, stick them. Oh, it was the wrong size. You have to go back to the stack shop. So yeah, this process of elimination. It was, and for my purposes, it didn't look good. It had to be completely. So even when I stuck it down with gum and everything, it still didn't look like the clinical clean I wanted it to be. Unlike now, so it bothered me a little bit. WA Records and Phil Mortlock gave me access to WA's art department and everything, so that made it a little bit better. And so I kind of did a mock-up, went off, didn't hear anything for a couple of days, and I get this thing back. Chris Murphy hates the cover.
And had he approached anybody else before you'd got involved to do it?
I don't know, it's a good question. I think what I did is, I think I was a little bit too international. I was a little bit too sophisticated, and he had an ego. He wanted to manage the whole thing himself. Managed the whole thing himself.
Controlling.
Without him knowing, Michael chose me. I went down there, and it was like, I never needed to do this. And what made it worse was I had Michael on the cover, which is their fear. I mean, I think the whole time I remember when the band were together, they were together the whole time, but when Chris Murphy was managing, it was the fear that Michael might leave if he got successful. So suddenly that image that worked so well was scared, not the band, but Chris Murphy. And Chris Murphy kind of put the thought in their head that Ozzy's not good for you, it's not a band, I think the band actually really liked it, but they were so easily manipulated, and it was like basically Chris Murphy and them and Michael. And Michael, I said I gave him a credit for concept because I got him involved with it, got him really making decisions, because Michael never really got involved with that kind of thing. And it's one of the first things. With Richard Lowenstein, it would be very sort of a last minute funky that we're going to go down for drugs to the Blue Mountains, just take a camera and make a video. This was much more orchestrated from my point of view.
Yeah.
That vision. So Michael stood behind it, and I knew that he would get it because if you look at that Jimmy Barnes video, an Excess video, Michael looks completely different from everyone else. He's got the right haircut, he's got that great suit on. Whereas the rest of them, Jimmy Barnes and Tim and everyone, they had that Aussie mullet kind of thing going. But Michael looked great. He looked like he was wearing like a Prada suit or whatever was around the Romeo and Juliet or something like that. He looked fantastic. And I was watching it again last night, and I thought that was the song that was playing when I arrived. And they recorded that in Rhinoceros, that video. And I just thought Michael looked so great. Everything about his stance and the way he was moving his hair, and I thought, my God, this guy! I can't believe people don't know who this guy. Obviously there were people that knew, but not in the big picture. Who this guy is? I was amazed. So, but I also knew, having worked with bands a lot, that I couldn't feature Michael on the cover because that would be wrong, because people would think it was a solo record or like Sting or something. So I never considered the kit cover to be a front and a back. It was a gatefold. So to me, the whole front was that fold of that picture. Yeah. But of course, to Tim and